first for me is to learn, but my input will be more, how are we planning the future? How can we make it better? How can we, in general, how can the sport grow? How can we put a bigger show on, a better show, make life better for the people which work at the team as well? That is one of the objectives.
Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Paddock Pass Podcast. Not a great deal to talk about in MotoGP at the moment. We're in that phase just before another bevy of races in Brazil and the USA. But we've gathered here to talk about a number of subjects, actually, because we've got a fantastic competition that is close to closing. We'll reveal the details of that in a moment. And based on that, we're going to give some of our tips, some of our recommendations, some of our non-Aragon favoritism towards particular events on the 2026 MotoGP calendar. And we've also got a great interview with the Red Bull KTM Tech 3 team principal, Guenther Steiner. You may have heard of him. There's a slight chance you've heard of him. But first of all, Dave, in the world of MotoGP, as we mentioned, there's not too much going on. But you've still been writing, you've still been keeping a lot of content on motormatters.com. There's a few little tidbits, isn't there? I mean, Moto2 points were halved after the chaos in Thailand. There's been some testing going on as well. And we're still waiting for confirmation that the Grand Prix of Qatar is either going to go ahead or, as looks most likely, going to be postponed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's about 99% certain that Qatar is going to be postponed with the way that the world is at the moment. We'll wait and see where they end up sticking it or how they change the calendar, but that's going to be a little bit complicated. Seems extremely unlikely that it'll go ahead right now. The half points thing was interesting but complicated because basically they restarted the Moto2 race twice, and the second time they restarted, they only completed one lap, and so that restart was null and void, and then they counted the number of laps incorrectly. And I'm still rereading the rules and trying to make sense of it. I mean, I think they were definitely right to only give it half points, but I think that was, but I still don't think the explanation they gave was correct, but that's probably on me. Apart from that, there is private testing going on in Jerez. There's 850s on track with the Pirellis for Yamaha and KTM. There is World Superbike testing going on in Portimao. You can actually follow that live. There's a Portimao live timing website. We'll put a link in the description for that. And apart from that, yes, not much. We're waiting for contracts to be announced. You had a very good piece on Motorsport Magazine, Adam, about the contract situation and why we're waiting, which, yes, everyone should go off and read that. That was very good.
Thank you, Dave. I'll fire up the direct debit as usual. Payment will be on its way. Neil Morrison, I still can't believe we were lucky enough to get one of the last seats on the MotoGP charter flight to get out of Bangkok. Friends and colleagues were pretty much stuck in the Thai capital. With the travel chaos that's going on, I know as we drove down from Buriram to Bangkok that you were sort of burning away the keyboard, getting all your text done. So did you complete all your articles from the Grand Prix of Thailand? And also I want to know, how is your excitement level for the baggers? Is it sort of creeping up a notch or two?
Yeah, the excitement level for the baggers has maybe gone from 0 to 0.5, but I'm pretty sure in the next 2 weeks it'll be revving up towards 7 or 8 as Austin approaches. And we still don't have a full lineup, so it is a little bit last minute in how it's coming together. We're still not sure exactly how many competitors there'll be, how many teams there'll be on the grid, and who exactly will be riding. But I have heard some whispers of some names that are slated to join, and if they do, then that could be a bit of a boon for the series, I think. And then what was your other question? Oh yeah, did I get all my other stuff finished up? I did actually. Yes, thanks for asking. And some of that stuff actually included a blog that I wrote for David Emmett's motomatters.com, which is a bit of a return to some old glories. So if you want to check out a bit of that, head over to motomatters.com and see what I was writing.
So that's where my money's going then, Dave. Blimey, if I'd known, I would have half the price.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, we didn't discuss this, but how did you get home? Because it was all very exciting. The last pod that we did, you were still in Buriram with no idea how you were going to get home because Dubai was closed. So give us the blow by blow explanation of how you got from Thailand to Madrid and Barcelona.
Did you see that CBS News report from 1974, was it, or 75, about the last helicopter leaving Saigon, Dave? It was exactly like that. Adam and I on
clinging on to
the helicopter. As it left Bangkok Airport. It was something similar to that.
Like an episode of the A-Team, Neil.
Exactly, minus the biceps. But we managed to blag a place on the MotoGP, chartered a flight from Bangkok to Madrid, and there were some team members, some riders, and the majority of the kind of Dorna, or as we should call them now, MotoGP sports entertainment group staff on that flight, and they had just enough placement there for Ad and I. So we left on the Monday night. If we hadn't been able to snag a spot on that, I think we would be traveling home today, because one of our colleagues, Matt Dunn, was forced to stay in Bangkok, I think, for 4 or 5 days because the price of the flights from other Asian cities direct to Europe were so extortionate. I think he had to fly to Shanghai and then Shanghai direct to London on Monday, the 9th of March. So, a week later than he was supposed to. So, there was a massive sense of relief stepping off the plane in Madrid, I have to say, last Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely. The worst thing is that the airlines kind of profit really from the chaos and, dare I say, the misery of commuters, because trying to find another flight that either went the other way around the globe or trying to find some sort of connection that wasn't the Middle East, which, if you're flying from west to east these days, you kind of forced to go through that route, was really difficult and very expensive. So it was a stroke of good fortune. Even it did end up costing us another sort of €1,700 or so. But there was another charter flight, I think, put on by one of the MotoGP agencies, which was even more expensive. So small mercies, and it was great to get home. But the impact of this, of course, Dave, just means that Qatar is still on the chopping block. And now, as we're recording, the prices and the crisis over oil, it's just a huge mess for an international global motorsport.
It's a huge mess, full stop.
Indeed. Well, listen, let's go ahead and straight into our content for this podcast. But first, I want to mention our competition. Neil, tell some of the listeners what we've got and what do they have to do to win, because this is not one of these contests that you might have a 1 in 1 million chance of actually grabbing.
Yeah, that's right, Ed. We have basically 2 paddock passes to a MotoGP or World Superbike round of your choice in 2026 available to anyone that goes to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Paddock Pass Podcast, signs up to become a Paddock Insider, an annual Paddock Insider, and then basically replies to our post, our competition post, which is pinned to the top of our Patreon page. So far, we've had 129 entries, so you're going up against 129 other entrants there. All you need to do is basically put your name there, and you could be walking through a MotoGP paddock and rubbing shoulders with the likes of, well, actually, I was going to say with the likes of us, but we do want people to enter the competition. So we will say rubbing shoulders with the likes of Marc Marquez, Fabio Quartararo.
Very quickly, off the top of your head, both of you, if you could have paddock passes for any Grand Prix, which would you choose? Go, Dave.
Oh, that's a tough one. Gosh, one of the flyaways, because if you go to the European rounds, all the riders have their motorhomes and all the rest of it, and they spend a lot of time in there. And if you're on one of the flyaways, it doesn't really matter which one, they have little offices, and the riders tend to spend much less time there. So you've got much better chance of actually bumping into people and talking to people at a non-European race. That's what I would say.
Of course, you would always advise anyone to head to a test rather than a GP anyway.
I mean, obviously.
Neil, Dave's given you plenty of time to think, but what's your answer?
Yeah, I think he's bang on the money. I mean, you're probably going to a paddock to get as up close and personal with some of your heroes as possible. So somewhere like Phillip Island, Motegi, I think have relatively quiet paddocks when you compare them to somewhere like Jerez or Misano, where it's just absolutely ram-packed and the riders are trying to basically be like ghosts and spend as little time as possible in amongst the thousands, the throngs of fans. So yeah, I think Motegi, Phillip Island, probably two pretty good choices.
Okay. Well, go on, Dave.
The other one I would say is Misano, just because it's got the best restaurant in the paddock. You sort of like go just out the paddock, but you have to have a pass to get there, and you could sit there, and they have it's Mugello, or Mugello's the same as well. There's also a pretty good restaurant there as well. So if you want to actually go somewhere and have good food and not survive on hot dogs and chips, yes,
nuggets,
yes, then either Misano or Mugello.
Yeah, but Misano's the 360 one because you can have breakfast and dinner, in kind of fabulous Italian fashion, cheap pizza. It's not just a paddock thing. So, but good answers, guys. And we'll come back to some more of our best and worst. But first, we've got an interview. We managed to grab 10 minutes with, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Guenther Steiner. People will probably know him from the Drive to Survive series if you sort of just dipped into Formula One. But now, of course, he's a prominent figure in MotoGP. I have to admit, I started the interview and after about 2 to 3 minutes, I looked down in horror at our audio recording machine, which wasn't running. So then I think Guenther at one point said, we have to do it again. And I quickly managed to put record and then went straight into a repeat of the questions. So I managed to save a little bit of face. But if there's a bit of giggling at the start of the recording, then you know why that is. Guys, very quickly, just before we run the interview, opinions on the Guenther Steiner presence in MotoGP. He's obviously heading a consortium. He's the first of the new wave, I guess you could say, Dave, of Liberty Media's influence in this sport, in this championship.
Yeah, I'll let you know in 18 months. I honestly think it's too early to say anything sensible about it.
I mean, it's possibly one way that could get some more eyeballs on the sport. It's a sort of recognizable figure outside the kind of the MotoGP world, which many motorsport fans will be aware of. He's a big character. And he needs to be, because he's replacing Hervé Poncharal, who is obviously one of the biggest characters and one of the most liked, I think universally liked characters in the Grand Prix paddock. But yeah, as Dave said, it's too early to know. And you speak to people in MotoGP, whether it's team managers or people high up in factories, and they do think that this is going to become a more common thing. We're going to see more of this in years to come with potential kind of consortiums that come in and purchase chunks of MotoGP satellite teams or the entire team, as was the case with Tech 3. And the number of investors, I think, that make up that kind of consortium that bought over Tech 3 is quite considerable. So yeah, it's I think we've mentioned before on the show, but it is quite an interesting time. It seems like a bit of a speculative time. Some people trying to get in potentially before the Liberty effect really takes hold, which, if Formula One is anything to go by, it took, 5 or 6 years. I mean, we're not sure whether there's going to be that massive bump, but I think a lot of people are expecting there to be that.
I found Guenther to be incredibly diplomatic, very humble as well. I don't think he came in with any airs or graces. Of course, the man has a profile. He's being followed by a camera crew and also a ghostwriter. He's already published 2 books about him, his life and his racing involvement, and they're working on a 3rd one, which obviously is going to be of interest to MotoGP and motorcycle racing fans. But here we go. Guenther Steiner on MotoGP, as well as his first appearance on the Paddock Pass podcast. Guenther, for the 2nd time, welcome to the Paddock Pass podcast after an abortive attempt. We got the video. People ask you all the time about Formula One, but you've worked in other series, of course. I think it's a little bit unfair that people always pigeonhole you into that Formula One guy. But then it's a valid question, isn't it? Because you've been in so many racing environments. So now here's another one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand that people ask me these questions, but I always answer honestly and say you cannot compare everything with Formula One, and you don't need to compare it with Formula One, because being different doesn't mean to be worse. than Formula One. It's just different. So and I worked in rallying, I worked in NASCAR, I was involved in a lot of things. So for me, it's more like to understand what it is, and then obviously you always can refer back to Formula One how it's done, because Formula One obviously is very successful. A lot of people watch it, and for sure the most watched motorsport series. So, but in the end, you cannot compare everything with Formula One, and you don't need to, because this is a good sport.
You took over Red Bull KTM Tech 3 from probably one of the most established people in the paddock in terms of running a team, in terms of knowing the sport. That's quite a challenge in itself, but it's also quite an easy way to drop into team existence, because you're not having to do everything by yourself from scratch.
No, absolutely, and I give a lot of credit to Hervé Poncheral, from who we bought the team from. He handed us over a very functional team. Obviously we want to make it bigger and better, but we have got a fantastic base to start off with. We've got talented people. They can go racing. I don't have to worry about that one. I mean, when I started F1 team, I had to put it all together from scratch. We didn't have anything, and you worry about every little bit. Here, I just know, if I'm not there, they still go racing. They know how to do it. They did it for the last 30 years, so they don't need me. But my input will be more like, how can we make it bigger and better?
Yeah, I think that's a question that many MotoGP fans will have. What will be your influence on a day-to-day basis with the team?
On a day-to-day basis, going out racing, first of all, my influence in the moment is to learn as much as possible, because, as I said before, this is talented people. They are doing it for a long time. They're intelligent. How I need to learn. I cannot tell them, because why would I be better than them? I'm not more intelligent, and I'm not here as long as them. So first for me is to learn, but my input will be more, how are we planning the future? How can we make it better? How can we, in general, how can the sport grow? How can we put a bigger show on, a better show, make life better for the people which work at the team as well? That is one of the objectives.
In that sense, you've come in the sport at a good time, when with a lot of change going on with the MotoGP Sports Entertainment Group, but then you've also come in at a very difficult time, because you're going to have to make decisions that influences the next half a decade in a matter of weeks. So I imagine it's a bit tricky to get the strategic vision right.
No, I think I'm in a very fortunate position, to be honest, to enter MotoGP at this time. It's it's a big opportunity, and it's not only a personal opportunity, it's a big opportunity for the sport, what is happening there. And being part of that one, I was lucky enough to being part of F1 when it was bought by Liberty Media and made the big step, and to learn, because when a step like this happens, you learn so much in so short time. Obviously, you need to make decisions, try to get them right, and I'm being handed a second opportunity here as well. So it's something fantastic. It's obviously work, and you need to think hard about things, but I enjoy that one. I enjoy that, and this is what anybody who has got ambition can dream of, to land in a position like this, to be part of owning a team and a sport. The plan is to grow the sport with the right people behind it.
In terms of the culture of celebrity, you're one of those interesting people in motorsports that's really sort of emerged as a character. I mean, do you think is that a positive thing for you? Because now you're into a new scene, a new championship, cameras are following you around everywhere. Can it be a distraction sometimes?
I make sure that it's not a distraction. If you focus on it, it is a distraction, but I mean, not in a negative way. I say, I don't care. Sometimes, when I've got the mic on, I forget about the mic. I cannot help myself. And sometimes people remind me, Guenther, you know that you have a mic on. Yeah, but it's all right, I mean, I have nothing to hide, So for me, it's not a distraction. And also, you get used to this a lot. But I don't think about it, because the work, I always said, is done by the people, not by me. For me, being filmed is not an effort.
Guenther, tell me one thing you really like about this championship, and one thing where you think, what the fuck are they doing here? We have to make this better. No, what I like is how competitive it is. And for me, the riders, how much on the edge they are. It's when you see them going out on the track, you see the stress level they are under. You see it in their eyes. It's something amazing. I think it's cool for me, maybe not for them, but I quite liked it. But there is nothing, what I would say, I actually hate that. I see
potential in doing things different, and I'm not going to tell you what I think because I'm not sure that that's the right thing, how I think in the moment, because I'm here, it's my first day. It's my first day at the job, so I don't want to be the wise guy which says something which I regret in 2 or 3 races, say, what a stupid thing did I say because I didn't understand it, But so no, I think the sport is a very interesting sport, and obviously there is a big following, and we all see that. And but what I really love is this intensity which is there, really. Grassroots racing, it's not everything is thought through. Everything is just sheer adrenaline, and I quite like that.
Did you ever see any of that exertions with drivers, whether it was at Daytona or Monaco, the same sort of intensity you see here with the riders?
A lot less. The closest I can get to is rallying. The intensity in rallying, it's very similar. And it maybe reminds me of that one. And maybe the good thing there was I was 30 years younger, So that's what I miss. But no, but in rallying, you saw sometimes when they had to go into a stage, you see it in their eyes. You really see these guys are in a different place in the moment.
And lastly, can I just ask you about your impression of MotoGP? For example, I was speaking with the film director of the movie Idols recently, a Spanish and Italian movie made in collaboration with Warner Brothers Spain. And the director, a British guy called Matt Whitecross, said to me that when he first came to a Grand Prix like 2 years ago, the sound of the bikes, the whole scene, the intensity of it all was really quite shocking for him. He's done documentaries with Oasis, Coldplay, and he's been to a lot of concerts. And he says the sensation of being around MotoGP was almost like being at a concert with the volume and just how much of a sensory overload it was. Did you feel that the first sort of times you checked out MotoGP? Did you think, wow, this is something quite unexpected?
Yeah, I would say the noise, because Formula One got a lot quieter. But as I said before, for me, the intensity here from the rider, that is the most what gets me. I mean, there is a good vibe in the paddock in MotoGP. I must say, the people get on between them. And yesterday, one of the team principals, actually, we had a little chat, and he said, as human beings, we have got a very good relations normally between us. Obviously, we are out there to win, but he just tried to explain a little bit the vibe in here, and that is nothing different than F1. Normally, the human part of it, it's very similar, but it's. I think I would say it's a lot like, in the end, like a family feeling as well. For a family feeling with people want to do what they love to do, not only like they love it.
Ever been tempted to take a bike for a spin?
Oh yeah, I started already to talk and ask them what it takes to, and they actually told me it's possible to ride it, but the problem is, when you ride these machines, you need to ride them fast, because riding them slow, I better get a normal bike. It's a lot less stressful, because it's the same like driving an F1 car or any race car. If you drive this thing slow, it's no fun, I think. And for me, I don't know if I can be fast. I maybe start on a Moto3 bike.
I'm not sure you'd fit.
But, that's the only worry, yeah. Man, I'm a lot heavier than the bike, by the way.
Well, listen, I hope it's a stress-free season and everything goes really well. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Okay, to head into the second part of the Paddock Pass podcast episode this week, we're going to talk about some of our favourite Grand Prix trips. And we did this a year or two ago. I think it was quite popular, Dave, because people still look at a calendar and think, I would like to go to a MotoGP Grand Prix or even a World Superbike. And if there is a place they haven't been to, or if they're between 3 or 4 different events, depending on the dates, then, which one do they choose? Does it come down to pricing? And we've got a few categories here. As I mentioned earlier on, Dave, you cannot say Aragon for each one. All right. So for the purposes of diversity, please just, give some interesting answers. First of all, if we're talking about a circuit, and I guess there's only a few candidates for this answer, but if we're just talking about a pure race circuit to go to, forget everything else, how difficult it is to get to or how easy it is to get to, all the stuff around it, which one are we going to choose?
Well, there's only 5. There's 2 great circuits and there's 3 outstanding circuits, so it's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those 5. I am going to go for Mugello. I mean, I would say Phillip Island, but you've got one last chance to go to Phillip Island before it goes, and also it rains. So I'm going to say Mugello.
You've never mentioned that before.
Yeah. I thought give everyone fair warning, just in case. Take a coat, and a hat and lots of other things. No, but Mugello, because there are only a few tracks where the MotoGP bikes can really be unleashed, especially this last year of the thousands. And Mugello is one of them. It's spectacular. It has everything. It's in a bowl, so you can see so much of the track while you're there. But the race and it often will produce great racing. And it's a motorcycle racing track. It's not a racetrack. There are too many racetracks now where it's a racetrack where motorcycles race. It's been designed as a racetrack more for cars than for motorcycles. But Mugello is a natural racetrack, and it shows.
The fact that the 225 mile an hour top speed has been set there twice, equaled in 2 years in succession, says it all. And of course, 2026 is probably the last chance we'll get to see that number come up for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it will again at some point, but it will take another 5 to 10 years.
Neil, what's your answer? You can't say Adelaide yet, but I think I know what you're going to say.
I did notice that some people, when we were talking about the Phillip Island, Adelaide situation, a lot of people were saying I was acting as a bit of a shill for MotoGP by talking up the potential experiment as a city centre street circuit in Adelaide. So because of that, I'm going to retreat and say that Phillip Island is, in just pure circuit terms, is the place that you want to go to. And I say that in spite of all the other, downsides to it. The fact that it can be cold and windy and wet, and you wake up in the morning of the race and you're not sure if you're actually going to have a race, which is very unique to there. The fact that when you go there, you're hanging out of your backside with jet lag, and you've travelled about 40 hours from Europe to get there. But yeah, just the setting of it, the simplicity of the track, but just it's just kind of so efficient, and you wouldn't really make one change to the layout at all. It's just there's 12 turns there, and almost every single one is completely perfect and interesting in its own way. And yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, it's had some of the best racing that we've ever seen. And I just think it's a wonderful place to go and watch. And even if you are having to hold on to your hat because it's potentially getting blown away by gale force winds, as it was on Sunday last year, you're still thinking, I'm at Phillip Island. I'm watching one of the best events in the world. So yeah, I think, yeah, as Dave says, Mugello, Phillip Island, they're the top two, and I had to punt for this one.
It's interesting that you two have picked probably the fastest tracks on the calendar. Which one would you say is perhaps the more sketchy these days for MotoGP?
Yeah, I mean, it's Phillip Island because so much of it is so fast. There are still a few sketchy places around Mugello. There's a few places where the walls are really, really close, and you are going up over the crest on the straight. You up over the crest, and there's the kink. It's a kink. I mean, it doesn't look like much when you look at it, but then you realise that they're doing, 360, and that's quite fast, really. And it just becomes a full, flat-out left-hander, and then you've got to turn it over and brake and get the thing stopped. So there's lots of ways that can go horribly wrong. But yeah, I would say that Phillip Island is more dangerous because you're going fast for a long time. And there's the wind, and I think it's the wind which really the wind can easily blow you off course into a dangerous situation.
Not to mention some wildlife or a seagull pinching your lunch if you
or
don't
a goose.
look out.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, like if you've ever I think I hit a sparrow once on a motorbike, and only doing, I don't know, maybe 100, 110k, something like that, not even going very fast, and you felt it. So God knows what hitting a goose at 260 would be like.
I was thinking more of it stealing your food, Dave, rather than hitting it on a motorcycle. But yeah, both perilous activities for sure. I'm going to say Silverstone. Again, there's this slight feeling that Silverstone could be disappearing from the Grand Prix calendar. And on that note, I just think, in contrast to what Neil was saying about Phillip Island, it's wonderfully complex. The range of corners, the speed, the history being there. I think it's something that's should be more treasured in the MotoGP calendar. And I know it can feel slightly cavernous when you're there because there are sort of empty or deserted spectator zones. But seeing the MotoGP bikes going through particular sections, especially the time-honoured ones of the old track that sort of first made its appearance in the World Championship in 77 or 78, I believe. This is also part of the heart of MotoGP. So, yeah, don't forget to check out Silverstone if we're just talking about circuits.
It's deeply ironic that one of the great motorcycle racing tracks, because Silverstone is such a great motorcycle racing track, is owned by the British Racing Drivers Club, which is basically ex-Formula One drivers.
Neil, if we're speaking about atmosphere, then which Grand Prix would we advise listeners to visit?
Yeah, so we've got 5 categories here, right? So atmosphere number 2, I have to plump for Jerez. I think it's a pretty obvious choice. There's, again, maybe like the circuit category, there's maybe 4 or 5 standouts here because there's a couple of, well, there's more than a couple. There's 7, 8 tracks which can guarantee, fans attendance of maybe in the region of 90,000 on race day, which generally is quite convivial to an outstanding atmosphere. But Jerez takes it for me because of its stadium section, the fact that it is like a football stadium, and that you're not just watching over some quite dull part of the track. You're basically watching over like one of the most absorbent parts of the track where so much can happen, so much drama, overtaking, crashing, toward the end of the lap as well. So there's a good chance that whatever race you're watching might be decided around those curves in the stadium section. And I mean, the last couple of years we've got into Jerez, 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday, maybe a little bit later on Sunday because the race doesn't kick off until a little bit later. But even by then, it's absolutely full. It's completely chock-a-block. It's still dark. And already then you've got the circuit announcer standing at the balcony out the back of the pit box, basically standing with a microphone in his hand and whipping them up into some kind of frenzy. And that's at like 7 a.m. So, yeah, you can imagine what it gets like when Moto3 kicks off at 11. And having been in that crowd as a spectator before, I can tell you that it's not just bon ami and good grace flowing. There is wine, beer, sometimes other things as well, that are getting the fans up into such an exalted state. And yeah, that just kind of adds to it, I think.
Do you mean pipas?
Pipas, yeah. Chorizo.
In the same sort of note, I'm going to say Le Mans. I know you're not a fan, Dave, but we've talked many times on the podcast about how Le Mans is engineered to sort of create like a 3-day swell of MotoGP enthusiasm and over enthusiasm. But when you're there, it's one of the very few Grand Prix where the fans are 4 or 5 deep at the fences. It feels absolutely full. You have a real sense of occasion. Again, a very historic place, a very historic circuit. And I love the way that there is this real verve for MotoGP and motorcycle racing in Le Mans. It's the same year upon year. It's a knockout event, really. So I'm going to say Le Mans. Do you have an alternative, Dave?
No, I mean, they're both absolutely great. And Le Mans is fantastic during daylight. As soon as the sun goes down, then it turns into, dusk till dawn. But before that, it's
Hayek's there, then I'm there.
Yeah, before that, it's perfectly fine. But those two are great. Also, like a shout out for Assen for Sachsenring. Atmosphere is fantastic there. It turns into a real festival. I think also, although I've never been to Sepang during a race weekend, I think the atmosphere at Sepang is also a really it comes across like in the broadcast that there's real passion and enjoyment there. But I mean, like if I have to pick one, I have to agree with Neil. I mean, like Jerez, it is so intense. There is nothing quite like a pass being made at Jerez in that stadium section in the last couple of laps. It's just absolutely electrifying.
You've never been to Sepang for a race, Dave?
I've never been to Sepang for a race. No, why would I go there for a race? I would go there for. I mean, they're not going to be testing, are they?
And Dave, you love Jerez so much that you bugger off like half an hour in the other direction to avoid it.
Well.
Yeah, and turn your nose up when you've got beautiful accommodation in the centre of Jerez, like you did throughout the weekend last year.
Yeah, well, yes, because it was. It's a pain in the nose to actually get it out. I'm actually staying sort of even further away now in the wrong direction because I was too late to book. So yes, it is. The traffic is tricky.
We should point out.
Usually, what we do is go to Jerez after the race because and so you can actually enjoy the city because it's a lovely city as well.
Well, we should point out that if anyone, the person who does win this Paddock Pass competition, if you want to go to Jerez, then good luck because finding a hotel or a place to sleep is going to be an absolute mission. It's one of those ones that you have to book up almost the year before. Actually, when you leave your accommodation, say to the person, "Can I actually reserve this room for next year?" Otherwise, you'll be either paying a large bill or without luck.
There were places still available when I was looking for somewhere. I booked about a month ago, and there were places still available, but it was basically for 5 nights. It was something like $2,500, which is
steep.
We would need a lot more Patreon backers for us to be able to afford that sort of nonsense.
Never mind the crowdfunding to Phillip Island. Let's get Dave down to Southern Europe. Category 3, we're going to ignore the circuit and the possibility of good racing this time and talk more about the location. If we have to choose a Grand Prix to go to, maybe for some food or some activities before or after or in the evenings, are there any particular places that immediately stand out? You first, Neil?
There are several places. I mean, if you're talking about food, that's a whole other podcast, and I can bore you all until the cows come home because I have a detailed list of places that I like to visit every GP. So yeah, we'll need maybe like a 15-hour Patreon series that will be dropping sometime this year. But if we're just talking about the location, I think I would have to plump for Lombok for the Indonesian Grand Prix. Again, lots of disclaimers involved here. I mean, the fact that this Grand Prix is not on Java or not close to one of Indonesia's various massive population centers where they can kind of take full advantage of the love of MotoGP. I mean, that's a shame. It's a real pain in the arse to get to. If you're coming from Europe, you have to fly to Jakarta or Bali and then on to Lombok from there. So it's certainly a long trip. But yeah, wow, what an island! I mean, I'd been to Lombok before this whole MotoGP thing had even begun, and it's just like it's what you dream of as a young'un when you think of like paradise islands with beautiful white sands and blue seas, palm trees, and still relatively unspoiled. I haven't been for the last 2 years, but I did go the first year, and I remember we rented some bikes and we were just riding around the island, and it is completely idyllic, not too spoiled, not too many tourists either, and quite a few nice little like towns with nice restaurants and bars and things like that to sit and have a beer in the evening time. So yeah, I think if you want to do a bit of a tourist trip, an event location, you can get no more spectacular, I think, than Lombok. You just have to look at what turn 10 is it after the back straight there. I mean, just about 10 feet to the left, you're actually in the sea. So yeah, it's a stunning place.
Neil, is that also a contender for best atmosphere? Not necessarily within the track itself, but around it, because we saw some amazing scenes when MotoGP was doing a street parade.
Yeah, that's the thing, but that is not in Kuta. Lombok is quite close to the circuit itself, which is a smallish city. But I think there's a bigger city on the other side of the island, and that is where they were doing that presentation. And it was crazy there. Like, I think, was it Bagnaia said last year that he felt like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Such was the attention he was getting. But then on this kind of on the southern side of the island where they have the race, it's not quite like that. So yeah, I mean, as I said, there's lots of caveats or disclaimers. It could certainly be in a better place if you're wanting to attract more fans there. And have a better atmosphere, because the times I was there, the atmosphere was pretty flat. There was maybe 60, 70,000 people there when it could have easily been well over 100.
Dave, what's the best location for you for on the MotoGP calendar?
Well, I think The most obvious one is Mugello, because you're so close to Florence, and Florence is just an amazing city, absolutely steeped in history, but it is very touristy. I would say Brno, because the atmosphere of the race is special. Up on the racetrack being up on a hill is amazing, but the city of Brno itself is really, really beautiful. You really see the history of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. There's a fair few really interesting museums. There's the castle up on the hill. There's the Gregor Mendel, because Gregor Mendel, who basically decoded inheritability, a Czech monk. The university has a really, really good little museum dedicated to Mendel. The food is pretty good. There's lots of restaurants, big variety. The evenings, it's very, very pleasant. There's the brewery. If you like meat and beer, then there's the brewery. Really enjoyable. And actually, the sort of like the surrounding country, you can actually sort of like go out and find all sorts of historic castles and that sort of things are in the region as well. So, yeah, I think Brno is underrated.
I'm going to say Kotter, purely because of the proximity to Austin, which, some people say that Austin's changed quite a lot over the years.
It has.
Yeah, in terms of the vibe and everything, but it's still quite a curio, I think, as an American cities go. And I know the circuit is not exactly next door. It's a good sort of 25-minute drive from the center of the city. But I think as soon as you leave the circuit of the Americas, then you also have the possibilities of this quite funky hippie city on your doorstep. So eating, of course, never a problem. Finding a place to sort of listen to some music, check out some weirdo shops and art galleries. Of course, every year they manage to tie in, I think it's the hand-built motorcycle custom show as well that happens downtown in Austin. And it's also a place for us, I have to say, where we can meet some of our Patreon subs. So that's another bonus, it has to be said.
Also, amazing bookshop and very good record shops.
Oh, yeah.
And tacos.
Great.
Breakfast tacos.
Oh, yeah, and tacos, tacos. Yes, lots of tacos.
Just very quickly on this note, what would you two say is the cheapest round of MotoGP to go to? Just overall, I know because it really depends on where you're traveling from and that affects your flights and whatever else. But in terms of general cost, I mean, Neil and I get to sleep in our own bed for the Catalan GP. You can't beat that. But just generally, would we say something like Misano because of the sheer amount of accommodation at all different levels, and then of course the food, and then you could probably get away without needing a rental car. You could probably just get an Uber or something to the circuit, right? Is there any other options?
No, because even like Brno has got really, really expensive. Brno used to be relatively cheap. That one's got expensive. Misano is definitely cheap because there is a lot there. I was actually looking at going to Hungary this year, and the accommodation there is just insanely cheap. But then it's probably
there's a reason.
Yes, there's probably also going to be the last year that they go to Hungary, or that they go to that circuit. So, apart from that, it is very, very expensive. I do look at Le Mans every year and think, shall I go? And then try to find somewhere and look at my bank balance and say, well, I'll go somewhere else instead. But yeah, there aren't any really cheap ones.
I think Portimao is maybe one that you could say, accommodation-wise, the city of Portimao offers a lot of pretty cheap accommodation because it's just building blocks upon building blocks of tourist apartments that are maybe slightly unsightly, but cheap. And I've stayed there a couple of times for €200 for the weekend, or maybe a little bit more than that. And if you have a rental car, it's pretty handy getting onto the track. So
also because it's the off season, and so it just tends to be quiet. But it tends to be relatively quiet. But there's still plenty of places open to go eat, to go out if you wanted to. So that's a really good shout.
Yeah, it's a shame with Portimao because it's another one of those events you think might be hanging in the balance a little bit for new Grand Prix in 2027. But also I'd say the proximity of the track to airports as well as, say, downtown Portimao is quite far. You do need a car. It's not quite taxiable. But yeah, I mean, other than that, Misano. On the subject of travel, that comes to our fourth category. Neil, is there? Tell me a Grand Prix that you know is a cinch. You'd recommend to visitors in terms of logistics, but then also what would probably be the worst one?
Well, the best one first. Jerez, I would say, is one just because, as well as Jerez being fabulous, you've got other cities in Andalusia within 1 or 2 hours that are absolutely must visits. Like I would say, Cadiz, Sevilla, Cordoba, and Granada are all fabulous, fabulous cities. Like among my favorites anywhere. And if you're going around the time of the Spanish GP, then it's just, unmissable, a wonderful time to visit those places. And as Dave said in the previous category, Brno, I think we have quite a lot of listeners, I think, or, a decent percentage of our listeners are from either the United States or from Australia. And if you're coming to Europe and you want to incorporate a MotoGP race into a trip, there is just some insane value that you can get by going to somewhere like Brno. I was checking on Google Maps earlier. I mean, you're a 3-hour train ride or a 2-hour drive away from Prague, which is a wonderful city. Brno itself is brilliant, as Dave has just mentioned. Also, I checked, and it's less than 4 hours driving from Vienna in Austria, Bratislava in Slovakia, Krakow in Poland, and Budapest in Hungary. So if you wanted to do like a little Central European tour of stopping at some of the nicest cities in that area and experiencing 4 or 5 different countries, then I think there's no better option. And each of those cities, I've not been to Bratislava, but the other cities I mentioned, all really, really cool and very, very different in their own way. So, Brno would be my shout for this category.
It's also, I mean, I think when MotoGP announced the Adelaide project, there was a kind of swell of opinion that, this is the way that Grand Prix is going. It's going towards city centres and whatever else. But there are quite a few GPs on the calendar that are close to airports. I mean, if we think of the likes of Sepang, for example, of course, you're quite far still from the centre of Kuala Lumpur, but you do sort of have that proximity to airport travel convenience. The same for, say, Valencia. You have to drive past the airport from the city centre to get to the track. So MotoGP does have this kind of tendency towards making logistics simple. It's not always heading into the Outer Hebrides for, certain facilities.
Are you going to say Aragon?
Well, the thing about Aragon, Dave, is that it lies with Jerez in terms of, you need to get your shit booked early. Yeah. Otherwise, you're looking at a 45-minute commute, and it can be pretty tiresome. And you can stay in some wonderful little hamlets, but then also you do have a feeling of disconnection, which I know you love, but it's not exactly party vibe for the majority of for the average MotoGP visitors. Is there a case for the defense?
No.
Oh.
I mean, like, genuinely, like, if you want to if you want to go to a race and then go mountain biking and hiking and have a very outdoorsy experience, then your choices are basically Austria or Aragon. But again, for both of those, it's a case of book early and be prepared to pay through the nose. But they're absolutely worth it if that's what you want to do. But like in terms of travel, like I really like Neil's suggestion in terms of Bordeaux, in terms of sort of that. But I would say Assen, because you land at Schiphol Airport, you get on a train, the train takes you to Assen, you get on a bus, the bus takes you to the circuit, and that's it. It's really straightforward. You can stay in Groningen, a beautiful sort of again a university town to the north of Assen. There is a certain amount. There's plenty of accommodation there, or there is some accommodation there. You get on a train, and it's a train and a bus every morning. Dutch public transport is, as a rule, pretty reliable, pretty good, pretty clean, very affordable, and there's lots of other if you want to stay, there's lots of other places that you're nearby that you could visit, Leeuwarden or Zwolle,
or you.
or me, or Amsterdam, or Nijmegen, or Utrecht, or Deventer. There's lots and lots of like really cool places to stay that if you really want to sort of explore, and it's something a bit different as well. But just in terms of like ease of travel, it genuinely is. You land at Schiphol, one of the major European hubs, and you get off and you get on a train and you get off an hour and a half later and you're there.
Dave, I see your Netherlands references and I raise you by 10 degrees and a great deal more sunshine, because I'm going to say Barcelona. Just, it's really easy for flights. Again, you can get away with attending this Grand Prix without having a rental car. You could just do an Uber, do a taxi, stay in the city center of one of the jewels of the Mediterranean, to wheel out a cliche, and, get into the track. You can do it by public transport. It's a little bit kind of sticky in terms of booking a place on a bus or a train. And if you get a train, you have to walk from Granollers station to the circuit. So it's a little bit of a trek, but it's doable. And that proximity, I think, just as soon as you've seen the racing, you want to head back to the city, be by the beach. At the time of year, it's usually warm, but not crazy hot. All the sort of vibe and the restaurants and the bars that Barcelona has to offer are sort of right on your doorstep. I mean, in the same spirit, Valencia has a similar kind of thing. You can fly direct to the airport, but it doesn't have, I don't think, the amount of air traffic that Barcelona does. In terms of options. Some people for the Grand Prix, for example, who work there, fly to Alicante, or even go to Barcelona and drive down. So Valencia has that vibe as well. And I think I would also say Barcelona is slightly nicer than Valencia. And of course, if you want to stay for a holiday, and you've got the Costa Brava right on your doorstep. So there you go. That's my choice.
Yeah, I mean, the one downside, this is true for both Mugello and visiting Florence, and also Barcelona, because, Barcelona is one of the truly great cities of the world. And if you haven't been, you absolutely should be. But because it is one of the truly great cities of the world, people hate tourists there. And there is a really strong anti-tourist movement, which you also get in Florence. You get in a few other cities. Amsterdam is the same. It's a lot of those big cities where people you do get a little bit of anti-tourist aggro. And if you do go to somewhere like Brno, it's not quite the same, or Valencia, Valencia a little bit, but there is a little bit less anti-tourist feeling.
I have to say, and there's absolutely no truth to the rumor that Neil Morrison's bought a new water cannon for the summer.
Definitely not true. Can confirm. But you were also asking what the worst one was, Ad, which I ignorantly shunned. And yeah, I mean, difficult ones to get to. I mentioned Indonesia's tricky to get to. Also, I think you could probably say Thailand. You fly into Bangkok, then you have to either drive 5 hours or take an hour flight up to Buriram. Thank God, well, maybe that's a bit cruel, but I mean, Termas was the ultimate pain in the hole to get to, because you had to fly all the way to Buenos Aires, then cross the city, and then take another 2 hour flight up to Termas, then drive an hour from, I forget the name of the airport, but yeah, up to where Termas de Rio Hondo is. So yeah, you're looking at 35 hours in total of traveling, which isn't really that much fun, I have to say. If you've not done it or if you've done it more than 2 or 3 times. But yeah, those are probably the trickier ones to get to, I would say.
What else could we say, Dave? I mean, Sachsenring, you could fly to Dresden, it's not too far. Berlin's a bit of a hike. But then Le Mans, you have to maybe go to Paris or to Rennes, which is also quite far. I mean,
but even then, they've all got major. I mean, Le Mans has got is on the TGV route, so you can get a high-speed train to Paris. Same in the Sachsenring, Chemnitz. Chemnitz is a major rail hub, and there's a train station in Hohenstein-Ernsthal where the Sachsenring is. So it's doable by public transport. I think Aragon would be more of a pain. You definitely need your own transport to get there, because I think there might be a coach service, but there isn't a train service as far as I know. So yeah, that would be one of the tricky ones. Silverstone as well, because it's not close to anything. I mean, it's not a long way away from anywhere, but it's not close to anywhere either. It is extremely inconvenient unless you have your own transport.
Am I the only one that gets tummy flutters whenever Dave speaks German? or speaks a German name in a very pronounced accent. Hornstein, what, Dave? Can you say it again?
Hornstein Ernsthal.
Oh, goodness me.
There's a reason
Yeah, that's
why
because
Dave
you've been saying
pronouncing-
Frühstück all these years, isn't it?
There's a reason why the clip of Dave pronouncing all the corners at the TT circuit Assen is one of our most popular videos on YouTube, Neil. It's just pure pornographic audio porn. That's what it is.
Actual ASMR ASMR corners. ASMR for MotoGP fans.
Boys, last category. Where would we recommend for somebody to check out MotoGP for the first time? A circuit, a corner, a location that would blow their socks off and really sort of hammer home how visceral and how fantastic this sport is when you see it live. I'm going to say, we've mentioned it numerous times, but get down to San Donato, turn 1, as close as you can to the circuit at Mugello, and just watch the bikes do that deceleration into turn 1. It's quite phenomenal. But there are other little picks as well. Like if you are lucky enough to win this competition to get the paddock passes, then just saunter through the first part of the paddock to turn 11 at Sachsenring, and you'll see bikes struggling to get all the way around turn 1, and then you can flick left, look through the fence, and you'll see them, dropping down turn 11, and that is also something quite staggering, I think. I'm sure we could probably fill a whole podcast with little kind of snapshots or mini locations where MotoGP really makes an impact, but if you guys have one or two you can mention off the top of your head here, it would serve.
Yeah, I mean, Mugello is absolutely top there because you really get again, because they are actually going flat out, so you really do get a sense of just how fast they are going, and you can actually get to feel it sort of up close. But the section all through, basically from Mavenmere, from the bottom of from the southernmost point in Assen all the way through to the GT chicane, or the GT chicane is a fantastic place to actually watch as well, because you see them really wrestling with the bikes, really having to fight the bikes. First of all, you've got all that speed beforehand, and then sort of like having to wrestle through the chicane. That's a great place to actually sort of like see what MotoGP really means.
Yeah, I mean, you've stolen my pick there, Dave. If I had to choose one place for the the quintessential MotoGP experience, it would be Assen. I mean, I take your points on Mugello, absolutely, or the Sachsenring, fabulous place there at turn 1, or looking out onto turn 11. But I think Assen, not just for the track, but just for the event. I mean, it's an event, the Dutch TT, that's been running since 1925. Last year was the 100th anniversary. It's held a Grand Prix every single year since 1949, with the exception of 2020 because of obviously the global pandemic and COVID-19. The attendance is regularly one of the biggest that you have throughout a season. I think last season it was the second biggest attendance. 109,000 people came through the turnstiles on Sunday. For sure, it's not the track that it was. The pre-2006 layout was completely unique the whole way around, and it was a whole great track. Now it's only half of a great track, I would say. The first part it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's
shite, Neil. It's crap. Isn't it?
It's crap when you compare it to the old track. It is crap, but I still think it's perfectly serviceable as a standard track.
Yeah, exactly. It's generic motorcycle racing track.
Yeah, but the second half, as Dave said, is absolutely wonderful, and that whole section through the two double rights that lead out onto the right hand kink on the back straight, Moivenmere, and then Hoggeheide through the Ramshoek. If you can watch at any point on that little stretch, and then up into the GT chicane, that is just wonderful. History of the event, history of motorcycle racing is present everywhere. You feel when you're in Assen, you're going at a great time of year as well. And also, I always think it's great when you are in a country where you feel like you're kind of at the center of its sport and calendar, for not just one day, but for an entire week. And there's only a few places that we visit where you get that kind of sensation. I think the Spanish Grand Prix is one, maybe to a lesser extent now than when, Rossi was racing, but Mugello used to be one of those things as well. Silverstone, not. Assen, you definitely feel like the whole country's eyes are on Assen that weekend, and that I think adds to the sense of it being a massive event to definitely experience.
I have to give a worthy nod. I can't believe you two have mentioned a chicane as a place to check out MotoGP. That
Yeah,
just
but it's the GT chicane. It's like Suzuka. It's like the chicane at the end of the Suzuka. Yeah, okay, it's a chicane, but it is an iconic. So much history has happened there, and you look back through the race and all the way back to I don't know when, but the amount of kind of incident, the drama that's happened at that GT chicane. I mean, you could write a book on it.
The other thing is that through a fast corner, you see the speed of the bikes, but you don't see what the rider's doing. At a chicane, you can, because first of all, everything is happening quite slowly. But secondly, they're having to wrestle, and especially the GT chicane, I think, is one of those places where you really see what they are doing on the bike, what they are doing to stop the bike and then get it tipped in and then throw themselves over to the other side of the bike to get the bike turned the other way. That actual physicality, the amount of effort that goes into riding, there's only a few places where you can really see that up close.
Okay. I accept that. That's slightly more convincing. But I do have one word reply for you. Curvoni.
Yeah, the Curvoni. Yeah, no, that is a very good shout, Ad.
Yeah, the outside horrifically fast turn at Misano. So there you go. Easy travel, good accommodation, cheap pizza, and a chance to see Curvoni, 26 times, 28 times throughout the course of a Sunday afternoon. A banger. Any more, actually, on the subject of Assen, it reminded me that we just had a press release in today while we're recording this, that it was voted the best Grand Prix of 2025. And I think you're going to saunter up there tomorrow, aren't you, Dave? There's some sort of press build-up going on for the 2026 GP.
Yes, there's the season launch for the circuit. Carlos Espeleta will be there, the Chief Sporting Officer for MSEG. I have 15 minutes booked with him, so I hope to be able to ask him some sensible questions about, sort of basically the future of the events, if you like. But it's always a good. Yeah, it's always a good event. It's always good fun. And yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising that it won the best race on the calendar. There's a few which are always really, really good. And they really made an effort. They really pushed the boat out for the centennial or the centenary. The centenary edition of it. So, and it's always just it is just, I know I'm biased, but it is a really good event.
Well, there's another free weekend coming up, Neil, before we reconvene for the next show when we're going to be previewing the Brazilian Grand Prix. I won't ask you if you're going to be watching Liverpool because that's a football team and football does not exist. I don't know what the sport is.
I presume QPR lost yesterday.
Horrific. It's absolutely horrific, Dave. I have no words in Raul Fernandez tradition. So what are you going to be up to, Neil? You got any work on? You're going to be cycling? What's the plan?
I'm going to be doing a little bit of work, but my other better half last week just came home one evening and said, I really need to go on holiday and you're off next week, or off in inverted commas, as in you're not traveling to an event. So we're going to Slovenia for 5 days. We're going to
nice.
Vienna. Yeah, it's been on our list for a while and thought, you know what, let's just go and do it. So it's not going to be a complete holiday for me, like there will still be working happening, but hope to check out what I've heard is a great city, and there's some lovely countryside close by as well.
Yeah, no, that is again another one that's easy to do either from Austria or from Brno. So yeah, that's what an excellent decision.
Dave, will you be out on the red BMW?
I've been out on the red BMW and it was wonderful. It looks like it's going to rain for starting on Wednesday. It's going to rain for about a week, so possibly not.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, listen, we hope you enjoyed this show and all the information inside. Join up, become a patron, enter the competition. We've got loads more happening as well. Extra content, access to our Discord community chat. So there's always plenty of banter and opinion sharing going on there as well. And then next week, we'll be back for, like we said, our Brazilian preview show. Thank you very much to renthal.com for backing the podcast. Head to the website if you've got a street bike and you're after a first-class accessory. They have a Fit My Bike tool, so you can find what you need for what you have in the garage. And this has been the Paddock Pass Podcast.